Hey everybody, this is my 40-gallon native tank, and yesterday I managed to catch myself a little baby sunfish that you can see right there, front and center, kind of making its way back into the shadows now. I was almost expecting it to school with the gambusia that are in the tank, but it doesn't really seem to be doing that. It seems to be completely independent and swimming around, doing its own thing, exploring the tank, looking for food, and just looking really good in general. It looks good and healthy. Its color is still there for whatever it's worth. You know, there's not a lot of color in these fish when they're this small, and in this lighting, they actually look a lot better, as most things do out in natural sunlight. And I'm honestly a little concerned about that in the long run as well. In my experience, sunfish never keep their color when brought home and put into aquariums. I don't care how vibrant and beautiful the sunfish is. Whenever I've brought one home, within a week or two, its colors are always muted and subdued. They tend to darken up. I'm assuming it's got to do with stress and everything else, so can't really blame them there. But I'm hoping that maybe by having one grow up in the tank, this just will be its normal, natural environment, and we'll actually get to see it develop its colors as it grows. Now, I will also point out that I have no idea what species of sunfish this is. I'm just referring to it as a sunfish. I know that it is one of the Lepomis species, which large and smallmouth bass are also part of that same family. But we have all sorts of different sunfish around here. We have the red breast, we have bluegill, we have green sunfish. My favorite are the green. I know the name green sunfish makes them sound kind of bland, but they are really, really pretty sunfish, at least for around here. The pumpkin seeds are another one that are really, really gorgeous, but I don't think we have pumpkin seeds around here. Or we might, I don't know. Again, it's just there's a lot of variety of these different sunfish out here, and they can fairly readily interbreed. So while for whatever reason it's not common, you do find hybrids of these in the wild all the time. So which actual species this one is, I don't have a clue. I really don't. I'm hoping that it's a bluegill. Bluegills are pretty. They have fairly small mouths, and they are not terribly aggressive. If it's a green sunfish, then I'm not going to be able to keep it in this tank for very long, because within literally a month or two, it will be big and aggressive enough that it will start eating the gambusia out of this tank. They get really aggressive, and they get big, big mouths on them. A green sunfish is more akin to a bass than it is to what you would think of as like a bluegill. So if it's a green sunfish, I'm not going to be able to keep it in here very long. If it's a bluegill or a redbreast or something, I will be able to keep it in here possibly for its, the duration of its life, which is what I'm hoping. I will also point out I've got gambusia fry all over the place in this tank. Once you really start looking for them and noticing them, I've got several that are this sort of what I think of as kind of like teenager age. They're a little bit older, probably a few weeks old by now. And then there's a bunch of little teeny fry swimming around in the vegetation and the roots of my floating water sprite here. So now that we've had a little bit of a look at the sunfish in here swimming around, I'm going to try to get us a look at the crayfish. So we're going to go from sort of a looking around video to a feeding video. I'm going to set up the tripod, and we'll put some flake food in there swirling around in the water. It'll make the tank look a lot less tidy, but it will hopefully put the flavor of food in the water enough that it'll pull the crayfish out from its hiding hole. It is in the cave on the bottom right at the moment. I know this because I saw its antenna sticking out. In fact, you can still just make out the tip of its antenna, possibly sticking out right there, moving around just a little bit. So it is still in there. Now, I did throw some sinking shrimp pellets in the tank right before I started shooting the video in hopes that, as I said, the flavor of food in the tank would be enough to just to get it out and about looking around for where that flavor is coming from, but it doesn't seem to have had much of an effect. So let me just put you on pause here for a moment, and we'll throw some flake food in the tank and see if that doesn't change anything up. I'd also like to get a look at the gambusia back there doing something more than just lying in the current. You can see I got the two power heads on the left, and the gambusia basically just line up against that back glass and sitting in the current waiting for food to come to them. It's kind of what they do out in the wild. So they're just doing their sort of natural, normal behavior in there. So let's throw some food in the tank and see what happens. Hang on half a moment. All right, this is just a little pinch of flake food. My Tetra Pro color enhancing crisps or flakes or whatever they're called. And we'll get to see my brand new baby sunfish that was just caught yesterday, and we will see whether or not it readily takes flake food that's swirling around in the tank. My guess is that it would be. Sunfish will eat just about anything. In fact, if you're out fishing for them, I have plenty of times caught them on bare hooks. You just drop a little bare hook in the water and they just see something hit the water and fall, and they bite it. I've caught them on little bits of twig or blades of grass that I've stuck on the hook. You throw it in the water, and again, something hits the water and they bite it. So it's not particularly hard to get them to eat when you bring them home and put them in your aquarium. So I don't expect we'll have any issues with this one either. But that crayfish is just not going to cooperate, and I don't see those gambusia being a lot more cooperative either. There's our little sunfish again. And sunfish are omnivores. They'll peck algae off the surface of stuff. I've seen them pecking at the off-walks. I'm sure they're pecking at little microcrustaceans and little worms and organisms that I probably can't even see. They will certainly eat other smaller fish. As I said, they'll eat little bits of vegetation. They'll eat flake food. I've had no problem ever feeding sunfish anything in my tank, whether it's been flake food or sinking granules. They'll pick up algae wafers. They'll pick up sinking shrimp pellets. They really will eat just about anything. So if you're thinking of catching and keeping sunfish, they're really, really easy to keep. Very hardy fish. They can adapt to most types of water. The only real issue with them is their aggression. Like I said, especially if you get a green sunfish, the green sunfish tend to be really, really aggressive, not only in a feeding sense where they will eat just about anything that they can fit in their mouth. And again, it's a considerable sized mouth for such a small fish. They're more akin to a bass than they are what you would typically think of as like a little bluegill sunfish. So the green ones are a bit problematic unless you want to keep them in a larger tank with larger other fish. Trying to keep them in a community tank like this, it's absolutely impossible to keep a green sunfish in a tank like this because it would make short work of all the other fish in the tank. And again, would probably tear that crayfish to pieces and eat that as well. But that crayfish is simply not going to come out, so I don't know what else to do to get it to come out other than stick my hand in the tank and try to scare it out, and I'm not going to do that. So we're going to go ahead and call this one good. You'll just have to subscribe and be patient. Sooner or later we will get some crayfish on the camera. In fact, I will probably stick my GoPro in there soon and do a tank cam feeding type video where you'll get to see the crayfish up close and personal with an underwater camera. So if you're subscribed, you won't miss that or anything else I've got going on. So thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll leave you with one final look at my new sunfish and say, don't forget this one here is my 40-gallon native tank. Thanks again, and I will see you real soon in the next one.